AITA for accidentally locking a total stranger in my soundproof basement for 6 hours. Okay, so before you guys absolutely demolish me in the comments, just hear me out. I know how this sounds, I know. And yes, the police were involved. And yes, I am currently the most hated person in my neighborhood, but I swear on everything, this was a genuine 1 in a million catastrophic accident. So, a little background, I am, or was, a freelance sound designer, 32 years old. I work from home. And about 8 months ago, I finally did the thing I had been dreaming about since I was 16 years old. I converted my entire basement into a professional-grade recording studio. And when I say professional grade, I mean professional grade. We're talking double-layered drywall with green glue in between, floating floor, acoustic panels on every surface. The door is one of those heavy industrial studio doors, solid core, weather-stripped with an automatic latch. When it closes, it closes. You cannot hear a single thing from inside that room. Not a phone ringing upstairs, not a fire alarm, not someone pounding on the door screaming for their life, which, as it turns out, is a massive design flaw when you are not the only person in the house. Now, the basement has 2 sections. The front section is where the breaker panel is. That's where the electrician needed to go. The back section is the studio. But here's the thing, to get to the breaker panel, you have to go through the studio door. There is no other entrance. The previous owner put the panel down there because, I don't know, 1970s logic, I guess, and the studio door, it latches automatically. It is not a knob you turn, it is a push bar exit like in a movie theater. You push the bar to get out, but if you're on the outside and you pull it shut, it locks. There is no handle on the outside. I know, I should have changed it. I had literally been telling myself for months. You should really put a handle on the outside of that door. But I never got around to it, because when do I ever need to open that door from the outside? I'm always inside. Anyway, last Tuesday, I had a huge deadline, like career-making deadline. I was editing the sound design for an action movie trailer, and I don't mean some indie short film, I mean a major studio summer blockbuster. Explosions, gunfire, buildings collapsing, car chases. The kind of audio that makes your neighbors think World War III has started in the cul-de-sac. So naturally, I was wearing my noise-canceling headphones, and not just any headphones. I'm talking about the $2,000 industry standard ones. The kind that block out 99% of external sound. When these things are on, I could not hear a freight train if it drove through my living room. My wife was at work, she works Tuesdays. I was home alone, or so I thought. Now, here is where I need to explain the electrician situation. We had been having issues with the breaker panel for weeks. Random trips, flickering lights. The whole house would lose power for like 3 seconds at a time. Super annoying. So my wife had scheduled an electrician to come by on Tuesday between noon and 4 in the afternoon. She told me about it. I absolutely 100% heard her say it. I nodded, I said got it. And then, I completely forgot, not kind of forgot, not it slipped my mind. I mean, it evaporated from my brain. Because at 10 in the morning, I got an email from the studio. They needed revisions by 5 o'clock, and I went into full panic mode. I descended into the basement at 11 in the morning. I closed that heavy studio door behind me. I put on my headphones, and I disappeared into a world of explosions and screaming and orchestral stabs for the next 6 hours. At around 12:30, the electrician arrived. His name is Dave. I learned his name later, from the police report. Dave was in his 50s. He had been an electrician for 30 years. He rang the doorbell. I did not hear it. He knocked. I did not hear it. He tried calling the number my wife had left. It went to voicemail because, you guessed it, my phone was on silent, face down on my desk inside the soundproof studio. So Dave, being a reasonable professional who has probably dealt with 1,000 no-show homeowners, checked the work order. It said panel in basement, access through side door. Now, there is a side door to the basement. It leads to the utility area, but like I said, to get to the breaker panel you have to go through the studio, and the studio door was closed but not locked from the outside, it was just latched. So Dave walked in through the side entrance. He went down the stairs. He pushed open the studio door, which opened easily from the outside, and he walked through the studio to the breaker panel at the back. And then, the door closed behind him. The heavy, solid-core, automatically latching studio door closed and latched with him on the inside. Now, at this point, Dave was not panicked, he was annoyed. He figured I was upstairs. He figured he would finish the job, then come find me to discuss what he found. So he spent about 45 minutes diagnosing the panel. He found the issue, a faulty breaker that needed replacing. He didn't have the right part on his truck, so he decided to come upstairs, tell me what was wrong, and schedule a return visit. He walked back to the studio door. He pushed the exit bar, nothing happened. He pushed it again, harder. Nothing. See, the exit bar was stuck, or jammed, or somehow. In the 6 months since I had installed that door, the mechanism had shifted slightly. It worked fine from the outside, but from the inside, the bar wasn't engaging the latch properly. You had to push it at exactly the right angle with exactly the right amount of pressure. I knew this. I had figured out the trick. Push the bar, then lift slightly, then push again. But Dave didn't know the trick. To Dave, it was just a locked door, so he knocked loud, he pounded, he kicked the door, he yelled, he screamed, and I, 3 feet away on the other side of that door, heard absolutely nothing. Because I was inside a soundproof room, wearing noise-canceling headphones, editing a scene where a helicopter crashes into a skyscraper. I was in the zone. I was completely, utterly, blissfully unaware that a 50-something-year-old electrician was trapped 6 feet away from me, slowly realizing he might die in a basement in the suburbs. At around 2 in the afternoon, Dave started to get genuinely scared. He tried calling 911, but here's the thing about basements, especially old basements with thick concrete walls, no cell service, none. His phone showed no signal. He was trapped in a soundproof room with no phone and a door that would not open, so he did what any rational person would do. He started looking for tools. He found my toolbox in the corner. He tried to pry the door hinges. He tried to unscrew the latch plate. He beat on the door with a rubber mallet. He shouted until his voice was raw, and I, at that exact moment, was adjusting the reverb on a grenade explosion. I took off my headphones for maybe 30 seconds to rest my ears, and in that 30 seconds, I thought I heard something, a faint thumping, but I figured it was the subwoofer or the neighbors doing construction. I put the headphones back on and dove back into the mix. By 4 o'clock, Dave had been in there for 3.5 hours. He had tried everything. He had written a note on a piece of cardboard from a box, trapped in basement. Please help, he slid it under the door, but the door was so tight to the frame, weather stripped to perfection for sound isolation, the note just crumpled against the threshold. He couldn't get it through. He was dehydrated. He was sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall in a state of exhausted panic. And he started to accept that he might be there overnight, maybe longer. He didn't know if anyone even knew he was there. His wife thought he was on a routine call. His dispatcher thought he had finished and moved to the next job. Nobody was coming. At 5:15, I finally finished the trailer. I exported the final mix. I took off my headphones. I stretched, I stood up, and I walked toward the studio door to go upstairs and make some dinner. I pushed the door open, and I nearly stepped on a man. Dave was sitting right behind the door. He had collapsed there in exhaustion. When the door opened, he fell backward onto the floor. He looked up at me with the most haunted, terrified, relieved, furious expression I have ever seen on another human being. His face was pale. His eyes were red from crying. His hands were bleeding slightly from where he had beaten on the door. He was holding a screwdriver like a weapon. I just stared at him. I had no idea who he was for a solid 5 seconds. I genuinely thought I was being robbed. Or that I was hallucinating, I said, and I quote, "Who the hell are you?" Dave did not answer. He just crawled past me, stumbled up the stairs, walked out my front door, got in his truck, and drove away. I stood in that basement for probably 10 minutes trying to piece together what had just happened. I walked into the studio. I saw the breaker panel open. I saw my toolbox scattered across the floor. I saw the note crumpled by the door, and slowly, horribly, the truth dawned on me. I ran upstairs. I called my wife. She explained about the electrician. I called the company. I got Dave's cell number. I called him. It went to voicemail. I texted him. No response. At 6:30, a police car pulled up to my house. 2 officers. They asked to come in. They asked me to explain why an electrician had filed a report claiming he had been unlawfully imprisoned in my basement for 6 hours. I explained. I showed them the studio. I demonstrated the door. I showed them my headphones. I played them the trailer mix at full volume so they could understand why I hadn't heard anything. They were skeptical, to put it mildly. They asked why I had a soundproof room with a door that locked from the outside. They asked if I had any prior relationship with Dave. They asked if I had been aware he was in the house. I answered everything truthfully. I was terrified. I kept thinking, I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to be on the news. Local man holds electrician hostage in torture dungeon. After about an hour of questioning, they seemed to believe me, or at least, they believed that it was an accident. They said Dave was not pressing charges, but that he was considering a civil suit. They advised me to contact a lawyer. They advised me to change the door immediately, and they left. The next day, I went to the electrician company in person. I brought flowers. I brought a handwritten apology letter. I offered to pay for any medical bills. I offered to pay for therapy. I offered to pay for literally anything Dave wanted. The receptionist told me Dave had taken the rest of the week off. She said he was deeply shaken. She said the company was reviewing their protocols for home visits. She took the flowers and said she would pass along my letter. She did not seem impressed. That was 6 days ago. I have not heard from Dave. I have not heard from the company. I changed the studio door the very next morning. It now has a handle on both sides. It now has a window. It now has a panic button. I have not been able to work. Every time I go into that basement, I feel sick. My wife is being supportive, but I can tell she is also furious. She says I need to give Dave space. She says I should not contact him again. She says if a lawsuit happens, we will deal with it. My friends, when I told them, laughed. They thought it was hilarious. Dude, you kidnapped an electrician. They keep making jokes about it. I don't find it funny, so Reddit, I know I was negligent. I know I should have fixed that door. I know I should have remembered the appointment. I know I should not have been wearing headphones that block out the entire world. I know all of this. I have not slept properly in 6 days. I keep imagining what Dave went through. The terror, the helplessness, the slow realization that nobody was coming, but was it malicious? No. Was it intentional? Absolutely not. I did not know he was there. I did not trap him on purpose. I would never, ever, do something like that to another person. The guilt is eating me alive. So, am I the asshole? Or am I just the world's unluckiest idiot who made a series of catastrophic mistakes that nearly killed a man through sheer negligence? Because right now, I genuinely cannot tell, and I need to know. Before I reach out to Dave again, or before I just sell the house and move to another country out of shame. TLDR, I have a soundproof basement studio with a self-locking door. An electrician came to fix my breaker panel while I was wearing noise-canceling headphones editing a movie trailer. He got trapped inside for 6 hours. I didn't know until I opened the door. Police got involved. I feel horrible. AITA. Edit, wow, this blew up. I was not expecting this level of response. Thank you to everyone who has given genuine advice, to everyone calling me a psycho. I understand, I really do. Edit 2. A lot of people are asking about the door. Yes, it was a fire code violation. Yes, I am fixing it. Yes, I have already hired a contractor to install a proper egress window and a door that opens both ways. I know. Please stop telling me I am going to burn in hell for the door. I am aware. Edit 3, Dave's wife contacted me. She says Dave does not want to speak to me directly yet, but he appreciates the apology letter. He is seeing a therapist. He has not decided about the lawsuit. She says he has claustrophobia now. I feel like the worst person on earth. I told her I would pay for whatever he needs, no questions asked, no lawyers involved. She said she would pass that along. That is all I know. Edit 4, to the people saying I should have heard him when I took my headphones off for 30 seconds. You are right, I should have investigated. I was an idiot. I thought it was the subwoofer. I will regret that 30 seconds for the rest of my life. I know. Final edit, I am going to take a break from Reddit. This has been overwhelming. I will update if anything major happens with Dave or the legal situation. Thank you to everyone who offered kind words. To everyone else, I hope you never make a mistake this big, because it is a special kind of hell. Goodbye. Hey, this is your host. If you are here then you like the video, make sure to subscribe and click on next video.